Yo! So, it's super early days working on this top-down game in Godot. My plan has been to map out the first level and just try and get some basic mechanics working. I have this little cat guy, but he looks more like a mouse, and he's got a torch with a light that sort of needs improving, but it works for now. And I've made a couple of animations for him, so he can stand by himself, and he can also run about. So I drew out the first level, and I put the rooms into separate scenes that's going to be easy to sort of manage and potentially reuse later on in other levels. I made some doors. One of them's front on and the other one's side on, so I can be using the left, right parts of the room. But then, I don't know, it looked a bit funky, didn't really work with the perspective, so I scrapped that. But that kind of messed up the level design, so I went back and redesigned the level, and then I remade those rooms. Yeah, I also made this torch charging port. So if the torch runs out of battery, you can stand by it and get some more charge. So enemies were the next thing on the menu, so without giving too much of the game away, it's going to be about the ghosts of pets. So I made this generic cat ghost enemy guy to use as a template when implementing the core enemy functionality. The first thing I worked on here was to have it so that when the torchlight you have passes over the ghost, he gets revealed, and then after a certain amount of time, he disappears. I managed to get this going with the layer masks in Godot. But then I realised, stupidly, I already done this because I have some collectibles, these ghost collectibles that you reveal, walk on, and then you get points. So in the end, I refactored everything so that the enemies and the collectibles inherit this code. I began looking at implementing a little text box where messages can be printed. I followed a tutorial by John Topielski to get started and got introduced to state switching, which I've heard is a common methodology in games. I needed to use this to help loop through a queue of messages to get sent to the text box when a player goes to talk to a character. So when you press E, the text box cycles through its different states. Pressing E when in the reading state, where the text box is printing out the message, skips the printing of the current message and just displays the whole thing. Pressing E when the whole thing is printed switches to the ready state, which cues the next message to begin printing. But then I got this bug where I'd press E to begin interacting with one character, then press E to cycle through these messages, but at the same time the initial interact would fire and keep queuing the same messages from that character. So then I implemented states into the character itself. So when you're in the interacting state with one character, you cannot interact with anything else until the current messages queue is cleared. Following this, I made several random updates to the game. First, I went and had another look at UIs in Godot, adding a prototype for a pause menu by following a Kobe Dev tutorial, which also gave me a quick introduction to writing shaders in Godot with this blurred background behind the menu. I followed this up with a prototype start menu. Staring at this thing, I've begun to think about how to go about saving game progress. JSON files have come to my rescue in the past many times, and it seems every programming language I come across can write out to them. In Godot, you can do the same. The content of this could be the world position of the characters and the current status of all the missions. For now, I set up the bare bones structure for this and went on fixing a couple of bugs. Bye for now.